One of the questions I get probably most of all is how to break through writer's block when you're stuck and you can't create. And one of the biggest reasons that people get stuck in writer's block or creative block in any endeavor, whatever you're trying to do, it's this idea of perfection, that you have to do it exactly right, and this level of perfection and following the rules kind of cramps your style. So I'm going to give you a guide that hopefully will give you a way to break through of this sometime. And I'm going to start by sharing a story with you. Back when I very first started writing fiction novels, a decade or more ago, I had not written fiction. I had written some nonfiction, but I had never written fiction. So I just dove into it, wrote a story. People liked it. It was enjoyable. I wrote a second and a third one, and then somebody gave some of my books to a critic. And this critic wrote, Marnie Pehrson is about the best there is at fictionalizing history, but she has an immature writing style. And I was like, what? I've been writing books forever. I can't have an immature writing style. And one of the people who saw the review came to me. They happened to be an editor, and they offered to tutor me in the rules of good writing. They said, I know what she's talking about. I can help you out with this. So for a year, this very educated editor tutored me in the rules of good writing. She helped me work on Angel and the Enemy, and it's a nice edited book. But when I got done, I could not write anything new. I had complete writer's block. I felt paralyzed because all the rules were now in my head, and I had been kind of edited intensely throughout a whole book, and I couldn't go back to just the blank page again. And it wasn't anything the editor did. It's just that I learned the rules, and now the rules felt really rigid, like, oh, I have to do it exactly this way. If I don't do it that way, then it's going to be wrong. And, these rules put all this pressure on me. Now, perhaps you felt that in some way in your life, where the rules are like, maybe you had a perfectionistic parent, so you live life that way. Or maybe you were raised in a faith that seemed to you to have a lot of rules and structure and things like that, and now you're just wanting to break free of all that and throw those rules out. Here's something that helped me. A fellow novelist told me when I was telling her I just kept writing anything, she said, try writing something just for you. Don't worry about whether it's edited. Don't worry about anybody else is going to read it. Just write something for you, something you would enjoy. And so I wrote Binding Ties, which is a little ebook that I have on Amazon. But I didn't really write it from the perspective of that it was ever going to get released, although in the back of my mind I probably figured, hey, it can be cleaned up if I totally do a horrible job of it. I'm not totally wasting my time here. But anyway, I wrote the book just for me. And it's one of my favorites because it's just me and my personality and what I wanted to bring out in the book. And it was fun. And it took those limits off. I ironically went by the structure, okay? My point of views are correct. My descriptions are good. All the things that the editor taught me to do, I did them. So there's still the things that help people keep reading a book. Anytime I read a book now and it starts to bog down, I look at it and I go, oh, it's because they've shifted point of view strangely, or oh, they're telling me, they're not showing me, or the same rules that the editor told me. They're what make a good book. They're what make a good story. And the structures that we have in life that we're learned in our faith background, or the structure of, say, the U.S. Constitution and our government, they're good rules and they bring happiness. Those structures are there for a reason. And I like to think of, the commandments that God gave us as rules of happiness. These are things, if you do these things, you're going to live a happier life. You're going to have less problems. Sure, everybody's life is going to have problems. Everybody's going to deal with pain and loss and all these other things. But it's going to be a lot easier if you just follow these basic guidelines. I'm always happier, and I'm actually always freer when I follow the guidelines. So there's this spectrum between structure and chaos that I call the structure-chaos spectrum in creativity. And a lot of times you start out in anything, whether it's playing the piano or writing or whatever, if you're taught by somebody who knows what they're doing, you're going to be taught the structure. And if you start to think that the structure is the way life is as a whole, that everything is this structure-ish, that every little thing you do in life has this level of perfectionism and structure, you're going to go nuts, okay? And then you're going to pendulum swing over to chaos, where you throw out all the rules and you just do it your own way. And then you quickly learn happiness isn't found on chaos either. You need a blend of the structure with the free flowing, and the spontaneity and the personal revelation and inspiration on how to do it your way. And ironically, when you do follow personal inspiration and revelation from the right source, you're still going to be following the structure, most likely. You're not going to throw that structure out. So you need both. The difference is it's the way you're feeling about the structure. That's the difference. When I was writing Binding Ties, is I just wasn't stressed about the structure. I took the anxiety off myself, where it wasn't like, oh, it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be whatever. I'm just going to go with things. And because I had been tutored for a year and these things are in my mind on autopilot, I just naturally did them. I did them. And if you train up a child in a way that it will go when it's old, it will not depart from it. Because if you really trained a child well, those structure, those things, those rules of happiness are in their life, in their mind anyway, and they will return to them because they're going to start to see that, hey, I do need some structure here. People who think they can just throw out everything and live in anarchy are fooling themselves. They may be able to find some happiness for a while, just like with a pendulum swing, but eventually the laws of chaos are going to come in and be just as confining and bondage creating as the structure was. So just because, I think what happens a lot of times is people grow up in a structure of what right and wrong is, and it brings blessings, and it brings happiness, and it brings some inspiration and everything, and they think, oh good, I don't need these rules. And so they throw the rules out, and then they think, oh, now I'm liberated, I can do whatever I want to do, and blah, blah, blah. But eventually, the lack of the rules starts to reap some consequences in their lives. And they realize, hey, I'm not really happy over here either. This is bringing me a lot of misery. Actually, it's bringing me more misery than when I was over here, especially if they haven't been so strung out over the rules. And then they come back and find this balance in between. And it's all in the way you come to it. It's all in the emotion. I talked about that in a previous video where I was playing the same notes, the same chords with different emotion, and it's so much different. You have a completely different song based on the emotion that you bring to it. And that's the same thing with creativity or government or life or spirituality or whatever. If you're bringing this cling so tightly, gotta be so perfect to it, you're making it miserable. It's not that the rules are confining, you are confining yourself by your freak out over it, just like I was with the writing. If you need to just relax a little bit and not worry about it for a while, okay. Everybody has their own journey, they have their own process, but I'm willing to bet anybody who continues to try to understand things in a logical way and try to experiment with their life is going to find that you need that balance between the structure and the chaos. You can't have an extreme in either one, because if you're too bound by the rules, it's very formulaic as well. It doesn't bring the beauty into the story. But you got to let go of the stress. If you let go of that stress about the structure, allow the creativity to come in, and the structure's still going to guide you if you've been taught well. Those are my thoughts on it. So just relax, enjoy yourself. If you're stuck in writer's block, try writing something that's just for you, that nobody else is going to read. Relax and enjoy it. Y'all take care. God bless.